it's just tough. I don't know. I think it becomes more for me like, how can Liberty make this about them instead of how do they handle matching up with the Aces? Because I think the worst thing you can do is trying to match up with them because you can't. So
one of my keys was 3-point shooting, Marcus, and they both teams hit 9 threes. That's not Liberty have got to win the 3-point battle in one of these games, I think, to win. That's got to be one of their strengths.
I would say so. I think, and again, this has been my big point, and I did poke slight fun of it last week on the show, but someone needs to figure out a way, and I know we talked about it earlier, but someone needs to figure out a way to play defense in the backcourt. We watched Tiffany Hayes headhunt Sabrina Ionescu during their series against the Sun. I watched Jackie Young headhunt Sabrina Ionescu in game 1 on Sunday afternoon, and it resulted in 26 points. I don't know. I don't know. I know for a fact that defensively, the answer is not defense in the backcourt because Sabrina's not a good defender. She's not going to be. She cannot out physical Jackie Young. She's not going to be able to stop Jackie Young from getting to her spot. She won't be able to stop Chelsea Gray from getting to her spot because no one can stop Chelsea Gray from getting to her spot. But to your point, Martin, Sabrina Ionescu is a 3-point shooter. She is the reigning 3-point contest winner. She set the record for most threes in a single season. She needs to be the one to ignite things from the 3-point line because, as we've seen throughout the course of the season and in the playoffs, when Sab is hitting from the 3, it makes everything so much easier. It makes Courtney so much more dangerous when she drives in and kicks out to pass to a wide open Sab because you can't help but crash in on Courtney when she's driving down the paint. It makes Stewie that much more dangerous when she's open from the mid range. It makes Jonquil Jones that much more dangerous. Like the key to success. And I don't even want to give all this love to the Liberty because I want to see them lose. But the key to success for the Liberty, especially in game 2, is being able to hit the 3. And that starts with Sabrina Ionescu.
I will say this, Mark, I will say this. Sabrina responded against Washington. Natasha Cloud called her out. Headhunt. She responded. After the Tiffany in Connecticut, she responded. Game 2, she went to the basket more. She got more looks in the paint. She opened things up for her. I saw her respond in both of those first 2 series. So I'm giving her the benefit. I'm saying I've seen her respond now. So I'm even more interested to see if she can respond here because we've seen her do it the last 2 series.
And I have no doubt that she's going to respond because we've seen her respond those last 2 series, of course.
Yeah, I think what's going to be really interesting because I agree. And I think, again, it's just a lot of credit to the Aces for how well they defended her. I think part of what was really exciting about watching what Marine did in that second quarter is that was to me, that was the key because like you saw so much in there for what, like everything for the Liberty's offense is about movement. Like you mentioned, the downhill drives from Courtney set everything up, but their ability to set up movement off the ball and then everything out of that is how they get things going because part of what was so great about that is like, all right, well, we had Marine got open 3 or 4 times. She got hot and then the Aces adjusted. And what's important about that is, okay, that opens something up for us. Can we make something happen off that? I thought what was so good about the Aces, like they defended that incredibly well after they started to change it up. They forced Marine into a couple turnovers. Marine also had a couple nice plays off of it as well, but it's like, same idea of getting that with Sab, right? Like you need to get that going. I think the biggest thing is getting Courtney downhill though. Like the Aces did a fantastic job, particularly in the second half, keeping her out of the paint, going under on everything. And I kind of was a little bit surprised that the Liberty didn't go to more of what they did against the Sun in this. Like obviously against the Sun in that game 1, they just said, okay, we're going under every screen and we're squeezing the hell out of every screen. We're not giving you a driving lane. And she couldn't really make anything happen out of it. Everything was contested for the team. So then next couple games, they do a lot more of, all right, let's do like high post pitches to her. So it's like getting her downhill on a drive, but without using the screen. And then it's way harder to guard. Right. I think that's where they're going to go to, just based on what the last series was like. And it'll be interesting to see how the Aces try and counter that. But I think, to me, she is the biggest part because if they cannot create easy offense, she is their way to create an easy offense. She is the player who can get downhill out of a ball screen like that and open things up because then once they get the movement going, that's how you get Sabrina going downhill. That's how you get easier shots for everyone else. And I'll be interested to see how that plays out because I think especially as well. Like John Quell played really well in the first quarter, but then Asia locked the hell out of the paint, and they did a really good job on secondary rotations too. They made it impossible for her to bring the ball down and then back up because when JJ doesn't have to put the ball on the floor, she is like unguardable. When she does have to put the ball on the floor, it can totally stall the offense out. So again, I think it's a lot of that's just going to be, can they get all the initial drives going to open up their movement and get everybody comfortable from there?
Now I want to ask you a question, Mark, and I think I've kind of, at first, I think Martin was with me, and then I think the more I talked about it, it kind of annoyed Martin just a little bit. But again, I'm not a big conspiracy theory guy, but everyone at this point knows that the boot is off and the scooter's gone, and she was on the sideline during game one. Obviously, game two is tomorrow night. We have not heard an announcement yet. We probably won't hear one, but the fan in me can hope. Right, Martin earlier talked about how there's only one team that can stop the Aces, and that is the Liberty. But if I'm not mistaken, in the 4 games that the Aces and the Liberty played in the regular season, Candace Parker didn't play in any one of those 4 games. If Candace Parker comes back, does that heavily tilt the scales, in your opinion, in the Aces' favor and drastically increase the likelihood of them repeating as champions this year?
So I could be wrong. I know Candace played the first game because they played like
she did play the first game. You're right. They played the first game.
Point being, like, I think it's interesting because it brings in a really interesting dichotomy of like, I think like obviously it's Candace Parker. You're going to bring her back. Like there's no question on it. Like she is there because she wants to win championships and be great. But just from like the actual point of like, how do we get this player in rhythm when they haven't even played in the playoffs, when they haven't played since the All-Star break? Like that's hard. I think you can look at the just point blank period on top of doing everything from a talent standpoint and be like, yeah, well, of course that makes sense. Like Kia Stokes, amazing defender, but it can be hard to keep our heads above water with her on offense if things get gummed up. With Candace, it's just different. Like, she brings what she brings as a passer from the high post and as a ball handler, somebody who can push the pace in transition. Like that just okay. Because on the other hand, it's like, all right, well, it creates this other bag of worms that the Liberty have to deal with too. And then, hey, she's like one of the 5 best defenders in basketball. So, but again, I think what's tough is like, what level is she at if she comes back? I would love to see her in the series just because I love watching Candace Parker play basketball. Who wouldn't want to see her play? But it just would be so interesting to see how that plays out.
I love the theory. Marcus had this theory that they were like keeping it quiet and they were going to.
So I did. Yeah.
I did feel like I know how good the Aces are without her. They just won last year without her. I know how great they are. And I knew just toe to toe, I felt like Aces Liberty. I'm like, that's even. Let's see that. And I think that's the only team that could take them out. My thing was like, without Candace Parker, like now after game 1, I'm like, all right, I'll give it up. They don't need her. They don't need Candace Parker to beat the Liberty. I get it. They snuffed me out on that because I was thinking, I'm like, if without Candace, they're probably a little vulnerable against a team like the Liberty. They might need her. Now I'm of the mindset, Marcus and Mark, that, and it depends on what Candace is feeling like, what she's doing, but if they're about to repeat without her, I don't know how many games she played, but she barely played. She didn't have to play in the playoffs at all. If they're about to repeat, she gonna run it right back for that three-peat. She did just run it right back. Bring her back. Let's make history. Okay, we didn't really get this one, but it's different than Aaron Rodgers missing the whole season with the Jets. The Jets ain't doing nothing over there. No. They might actually still win it without her. Everybody was complaining about super team, the Candace, it's unfair. They're about to win it without her anyway. So you might as well bring it back, run it back, go for the dynasty, go for the three-peat with her. That's how I'm seeing it now.
And I would say too, and Martin and I had this conversation, Mark, during that time when they were like the lull of the season, I think they lost their first game to the Sun when Dwana Barner had like a career night and she set like a franchise record for points. And then they lost to the Wings not that far after that. And I texted Martin and I was like, it feels like the Aces are missing something. And then Martin said, yeah, they're missing Candace Parker. Because it was at the time like they were playing so many games in such a short period of time when they were doing like a lot of back and forth between home and away. And they were missing, like you mentioned, like the high post and the passing out of the high post. And one thing that I noticed is when Candace Parker was on the floor, those defensive switches and the things that the Aces love to do under Becky Hammond, especially in the zone, they weren't really able to do those things so seamlessly without Candace Parker early on in the season. Now, of course, they figured it out and they went on what they went on, and obviously, but Candace Parker to me is not a necessity. Of course, she is not a necessity. I feel confident that the Aces can get the job done without Candace Parker, but Candace Parker being present in this series, even if it's, let's say, 70% of what Candace Parker could be at her best, that still puts the Liberty, I think, in a very, very dire situation, to the point where we're talking about a series that should go 5. Like, if she plays and they keep playing how they've been playing, like, this series could be over in 3 or 4. And this great Liberty team doesn't look that great in this series. Again, the fan of me would love to see Candace Parker play basketball in this series because, like you said, who doesn't want to see Candace Parker play basketball? But it's crazy to think that, especially after that lull of the season and to get to where they are now, that, like Martin said, they don't need Candace Parker to win this series.
Yeah, I will say, though, to the Liberty's credit, they have been phenomenal with game 1 to game 2 adjustments. Mm-hmm. So I think tomorrow is going to be, it's just going to be absolutely key to see how it plays out, because we'll be having a very different conversation after tomorrow night. So I'm interested to see what that looks like.
We will. We'll be having a very different conversation after tomorrow night. I do want to, Mark, super quickly before we get out of here, I want to ask you, and Martin, you as well. Mark, who do you have winning tomorrow? And who do you think is going to win the whole thing?
Yeah, I have the Aces winning tomorrow. I think if I had to make my pick today, I would probably have Aces in 4. This is just my feel off of game 1. Could well be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times, but that would be my guess off of this.
For the sake of my pick, I got the Liberty bouncing back in game 2. They got to play the game of their lives, but I think they're built for it, and I'm going Liberty in 5.
I so desperately want to say the Aces are going to win this game tomorrow, because it puts a very interesting dynamic and a very interesting aura over game 3 when they go to Barclays. But I've let my Aces bias get me in trouble one too many times about this series, so I'm going to take the Liberty tomorrow.